Hey guys, and welcome to the recap of Game 3 of the 2026 Scrabble Players Championship Finals between myself and Orry Swift. As you saw on Monday and Tuesday, I won the first two games. Game 1 in a very tense tactical battle, Game 2 in a lopsided bagging, so I'm up 2-0. I have just got to win one more game to secure the title. Orry has got to win the last three. But like I said, I knew it was not over yet and that Orry would put up a fight, and spoiler alert, put up a fight he did. As you guys can see in the bottom left, Orry played an astonishing perfect game according to the Woogles engine, making 0.0 mistakes and earning a 2300 rating for the game. I myself wasn't that far behind. I played a 0.6 mistake game at a 2183 level, which is pretty good, but it's certainly not 0.0, so major shout out to Orry on bouncing back from a 0-2 deficit and doing what needed to be done and playing perfect Scrabble in this game. However, it was a rough start for him. He had a clunky opening rack with too many constants, and he made a wise decision to exchange here down to ERT. I think this is an instructive position. A lot of players would be greedy and grab 20 points with something like Jet, but the leave of GLRR is horrendous, and especially on the first turn, which is the best turn of Scrabble to exchange, you're effectively just going second. It's better to take the sacrifice and keep a good leave like ERT and put yourself in position to bingo on your next turn. You'll see that playing through with Jet is not even on the computer's top 5 choices, so that shows you how bad it is. Excellent decision here by Orry. I have a pretty easy play, which I'm thankful to have here. Weepy for 34 points, keeping MO. Of course, I played it vertically, not like the computer wants, because playing vertically is what I do, as you guys know if you watch my YouTube channel regularly. And Orry trades 4 constants and draws 4 constants. He certainly was not feeling great, understandably, at this point of the game, but he makes another excellent decision playing Burr for 13 points. Setting up his third R, because by the way, BRRR is good. You can be cold and you can be really cold. So this is an outstanding play, keeping a fantastic leave and giving himself an excellent bingo line on his next turn. And here I make a very questionable decision. Not necessarily wrong, but highly questionable. The computer thinks it is a very small mistake. I play Imam for 20 points, trying to channel my inner Nigel Richards and set up Ox and Jai for 50 points on my next turn up here. I figured that Orry probably had a third R with Burr, and that there was a decent chance he might play down there or bingo down there and leave me my X play on my next turn. I also liked that Imam blocked the 2 E's of Weepy, preventing Orry from getting a bingo through either of those tiles, as Burr suggested to me that he was likely heavy on consonants and that those E's could be a boon for him in getting his bingo down. However, the drawback with Imam is that while it blocks the E's, it gives him an I, which could be very useful to him for bingoing, and even if he doesn't have a bingo, he might often have a decent overlap next to Imam, hooking the I, the M, and Aw, and thereby taking away my X spot. So the computer here very slightly prefers that I make a more standard play such as Meow, saving the X but without such a blatant setup and keeping the M as well, or something like Moxie, scoring more and also setting myself up for good M plays such as Ma on my next turn if Orry doesn't take this spot. I absolutely considered all of these options. I felt that Imam had just enough of a chance of staying open to be worth it, so I made this play and the computer says it is a very small mistake. However, in this particular instance, trying to be like Nigel Richards backfired spectacularly, as I gave Orry the exact tile he needed to bingo with everting for 78 points. Had I made any of the other candidate plays I mentioned, Orry would not have had a playable bingo and he would have had a very challenging decision on his hands, leaving me still in the driver's seat. Given I played Imam though, he gets the first bingo down and jumps out into an early lead. I do want to emphasize though, guys, as I mentioned in one of the earlier videos, that just because a play you make in Scrabble doesn't work out does not mean it was incorrect. And I had to work hard to remind myself of this during the game, since of course I realized that, dang it, had I just made one of the other plays I was considering, besides this fancy play of Imam, so to speak, or he wouldn't have gotten his bingo down. And it's easy to dwell on that and get frustrated. But I've been through this enough, I was able to remind myself, all right, Mac, that doesn't mean you made a mistake, it just means it didn't work out. And you're still in a good position here. You're not down that much. You still have the X. Move on and go from here. So that's exactly what I tried to do, and I made a very good play here of Oxalic for 36 points. There's no good way to score more with my X, and there's no reason to try to set it up again or keep it. I should just score here, tie the game, and dig for the blanks and other goodies still in the bag. The R's, of which 3 remain, are going to be key. because not only is there still the BRRR hook I mentioned earlier, but there is now an even bigger hook of reverting, which would allow bingos or other big plays on the top left triple word score, making reverting. So that is something to keep in mind. And because of that, I was thrilled to be able to play 6 tiles here to maximize my chances at not only one of the blanks or S's, but also one of the 3 R's. Orry does not have an R, and he doesn't have anything great here. He plays Vif for 26 points from the V on the board. The only drawback of this play is that it uses the V on the board, so he still has his own V, which is not a great tile. But what's nice about this is it threatens to possibly make plays through the F of Vif on a future turn, which would enable him to block reverting. Otherwise, right now, if he doesn't play in that area of the board, the reverting hook could be pretty annoying to block without an R, so Vif does give him some optionality to block that if that ends up being good for him later down the road, which is nice. There also just aren't really a whole lot of other good plays. The next best suggestion of the computer of Volta for 24 is a really scary play to make, as while the 2 Fs do have decent synergy, putting an A right next to that double word score is terrifying, as it's going to give back not only Z plays, but also a lot of easy double doubles for me, which would be a disaster. So I think Orry made a wide decision here at playing Vif, even at the expense of keeping his V. I had a good draw pulling the blank after Oxalic, but unfortunately I'm slightly too vowel heavy to bingo here, having 4 vowels and the Y. So here I decided to play Oily for 16 points through the L of Oxalic. I could have been a lot more conservative by playing something like Oi in the top left corner, blocking the R hook on reverting. But I figured this was a good time to be aggressive. I have the R and the blank. So I figured my average range here and my average likelihood of hitting the reverting hook big is much higher than Orry's of doing the same. So I figured I should be aggressive here, play Oily, save the R and the blank, and try to bingo there on my next turn. The computer thinks it's fairly close, but it does generally support my decision of leaving that spot open, preferring Oily, Yo in this spot, not Oi in the top left corner, or even playing Foy, perhaps with the idea of preventing plays like the ones I mentioned before that Orry might try to make through the first F of Vif that would partially block reverting. In any case, Oily to shed the extra vowel and keep just 2 instead of 3 on my rack seems perfectly reasonable. Orry gets a clutch draw here, pulling EEK, which doesn't look that great at first, but it gives him overtake for 77 points, putting him firmly in command of this game. And here I spent a long time on this rack. I have a lot of playable bingos, but none of them are as good as I might think, because I figured here, surely I've got to have something that's worth over 100 points. If I can bingo on the left hooking reverting and getting on the triple with my H and my W, that's going to score over 100. Or if I get a double-double through the second E of overtake, that's going to score over 100. I spent probably like 3 or 4 minutes here looking for such a bingo to no avail, and it turns out there is none. I eventually found my highest scoring bingo, which I ended up playing here for 86 points. However, there are other options worth considering too. I could not bingo intentionally and play Homered for 52 points, a great score while still saving the blank on my next turn. I also could play Drew in the top left, scoring 49, taking out this spot if Orry has drawn an R, and still keeping the blank as well. A lot of really interesting options to consider. I ultimately decided that the bingo is too many points to pass up. This virtually ties the game, bringing me to within 2 points of Orry's score, and creates a wide open board where anything could still happen. It's worth mentioning I am still at a clear disadvantage after this play. As you can see, my win percentage is only around 35%. That's because Orry is up a tempo, meaning it is his turn to play next. So even though the score is even, that is a subtle but clear advantage for Orry, and he's going to be in the driver's seat. But that means that the open board, if anything, is still good for me, as I may continue to need to mount a comeback. That would especially be the case after Orry draws yet another bingo, making his best play of outsert and overtakes, retaking an 80-plus point lead. And I have a horrendous draw after my bingo, pulling 6 vowels and a J. And I have a really tough decision here that I may have handled slightly inaccurately. I saw Hefe for 44 points and passed it up. Yes, it is 14 more points than the play of Je I ultimately made, but the leave after Hefe is so horrendous. AIIU is never going to result pretty much in a bingo or anything good, and it also blocks the reverting hook and gives Orry easy counterplay from the J, which he can use to score well and block up that part of the board. I felt that being down a lot and now in a terrible position with this bad a rack, I needed to keep the reverting hook open for bingos and not give Orry such easy scoring counterplay. So I decided to play Je making Ja and Im for 30 points instead. It might have been slightly better to play Je over here to the left of the bingo I played on the previous turn, as this also creates yet another threat for bingos if I were to draw one of the 3Ds for duh down the B column. And again, being that I am going to be down in a bad spot, I could use every threat I can create. As it turns out, this possibly small mistake was capitalized on beautifully by Orry. With a horrible rack, he finds Dematon for 40 points through the Im I just created. His second double-double through a 3 of the series, by the way. You may remember the nice iodating play he made in Game 1, so excellent board vision here by Orry, easily his best play. And as it turns out, had I played Je in the other spot, he would not have had any good options on this turn. And on my next play here, I unfortunately made another mistake. This one, I would say, considerably larger than my mistake on my last turn, and as we'll see, I once again got punished for it. Here, I completely did not see the option of Tibier for 33 points on the bottom, which scores well and beautifully cleans out my rack, getting rid of 4 vowels and keeping IN. Instead, not seeing that, I played Assini for 18. This does have the benefit of keeping the board wide open. It leaves open the entire bottom part of the board, creates another line on the right-hand triple word score, and leaves reverting open if I am fortunate enough to draw the last remaining R or the blank. So Assini does lead to better board shape, which is some consolation, but Tibier is simply so much better on both points and leave that I have to play it. There is a clear drawback with Tibier, that playing parallel to the words already on the board, it really exhausts a lot of space on the bottom, so it takes out like all of the floaters on the left-hand side and the right-hand side of the board. All of those tiles kind of get in the way of each other, and now after Orry blocks the reverting hook, I am left with relatively few places to bingo, although I will still have some. I'll have the E and Tibier on the bottom, the C of Oxalic, possible disconnected 9s if I can find one on the bottom of the board, and this keeps me well within range of Orry's score if I do get one more bingo down, so it is the clearly better play. A unfortunate mistake for me here, missing that, and I got punished, like I said, as Orry slams down the game-ending bingo of Anil's for 75 points. It's worth mentioning, had I played Tibier like I should have, Anil's would not have played, as this line wouldn't have existed, and Anil's and outserts would have been blocked. So, 2 slight but clear mistakes for me in a row, and 2 turns in a row where I got punished. That'll happen to you in Scrabble, guys. At this level, there is no room for error. If you make mistakes, your opponents are very good Scrabble players, and they will punish you for it, and at this point, I was pretty much dead. I drew the Q without a U here. I had no choice but to play Chi in the top right. Orry continues playing well here. He plays Mugs, taking out the biggest threat on the board, which is, of course, the M in my previous bingo for a triple-triple. At this point, it's going to be pretty much impossible for Orry to lose the game. Here, I made what I thought was a clever play. I'm pretty much dead, and I played Heeds for 28, which looks weird, getting rid of my E when I could actually score even more by playing hide and keeping the E. I was going for a specific draw at this point, figuring if I drew an A, an R, and a Z, or with one of those tiles being the blank, which was unlikely but not inconceivable, I could be threatening Brazils and reverting, which would score nearly 150 points and possibly get me back into the game. The thing here is, guys, I figured I'm going to need not only a bingo, but a massive bingo, because with only 10 tiles in the bag, after my play and Orry's next play, there will be fewer than 7 in the bag, which means I will not mathematically be able to bingo twice. So with this large a deficit and not being able to bingo twice, really the only way I can possibly win this game is to get a massive bingo. And I figured for that, I'd need to draw the Z. So I started thinking, okay, what can I draw into that scores a lot of points if I draw the Z? Well, the R could be nice too for reverting. It's like, oh, wait a minute, Brazils. It's unlikely, but it's possible. And when you're in this desperate a position, you have to sometimes think about very specific draws that would give you a chance. So that's what I did. I'm proud of myself for coming up with this creative option in the face of a nearly helpless situation. But of course, Orry already had the Z and slaps down Zeta for 61 points, ending any chance I had of winning this game. I play Obi for 22. He plays Crap for 46 points on the top left. Just for fun here, I put down Crapolas on the board since it's a really cool extension. Got a good laugh out of Orry and the commentators, so tried to make some humor out of an otherwise rough game for me to keep my spirits high heading into Game 4. But then I picked it up on the board as Loaves is a better play here in the endgame, so I put that down. Orry goes out with Mouton for 16 points, capping off an impressive, once again, perfectly played game and a dominant victory here, 536 to 364, extending the series, cutting my lead to 2 games to 1 and forcing a game 4, which I will be covering in tomorrow's video. So that's it for this one, guys. Shout out to Orry on an awesome game here and a big comeback. And I look forward to seeing all of you for tomorrow's video on game 4. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.